Our story begins here, in a hospital room filled with cold gray, where our heroine is. Her name is Samantha, and right now she is looking at the screen of her smartphone, trying to call her husband, Jacob. Now, she is far from in the best shape, because her beautiful lips are dry and cracked. Dark bags have appeared under her eyes, and the lack of long and beautiful hair had to be hidden under a cap. At the same time, two nurses are discussing her condition. They are struck not only by the fact that Samantha has 2 months left at best, but also by the fact that her husband has not visited the girl since her arrival here. One of them goes into Samantha's room to find out if everything is okay and if she can help with anything. But in front of her, she sees only an empty, spacious room, while the patient is not in it, and pink petals are flying outside the window. One such pink petal falls into Samantha's hand, emaciated from a serious illness, a harbinger of late spring. This cruel irony. Our heroine thinks while she is being affected by cancer cells, slowly leading her to death, spring makes all living things around her smell fragrant. After standing for a while at the entrance to the hospital, Samantha decides to call a taxi, simultaneously thinking that while her beauty is leaving, everything around her is filled with it. The girl asks the driver, an elderly man in a good mood, to take her to the address of her apartment with her husband. The driver notices Samantha's serious condition and says that in this case, he will try to bring her to the house as soon as possible so that she does not miss the spring in the hospital. Hearing his speech, Samantha remembers with sadness and nostalgia her father, who resembles this man right down to his voice. Once upon a time, her father, who has now left this world, sold the house so that his daughter could move with him to the capital, where a new life would await them. This man was everything to Samantha, her closest friend and loved one, but now, as the girl recalls, there is no such person next to her. Memories of the closest and lost person roll over our heroine in a heavy wave, when suddenly the taxi driver decides to talk to her again. He says that we shouldn't lose heart and tries in every possible way to cheer up Samantha, saying that the next day will come for everyone, and that we shouldn't lose hope. They finally arrive at the girl's house, a large apartment complex on the outskirts of the city, where the only remarkable thing is the trees blooming in the spring. Samantha hands the driver the fare money, the last bill she was saving, especially for this. However, the elderly man refuses the money, telling her to pretend that it is pocket money that she received from her father. He tells her that he is doing this not because today may be her last day, but because she is his last client, and asks her to live well, and this promise will be payment. With the bill inside, there is a small piece of candy, something her father also liked to do, which only added to the similarity between him and this kind taxi driver. Samantha notes that perhaps this is her last good memory in this lousy life that she had to endure. A few minutes later, she found herself at the door, through which she had not passed for several months since her hospitalization. From the entrance, her gaze is met with surprise, because in addition to the shoes of her husband, Brian, she also sees the red shoes of Monica, her old friend, to whom she gave these shoes. At the same time, she hears Monica's voice from the bedroom, offering to take the deposit for the apartment and move, which leads the girl to unambiguous conclusions. She approaches the entrance to the bedroom, intuitively understanding what she will see in front of her, continuing to hear her friend's words that she wants to live in a new house and calls Brian her beloved. Her suspicions are now confirmed with her own eyes, because Samantha sees her husband and Monica lying in bed, discussing how much insurance money they will receive. The figure would shock many, and it shocked Samantha too, because insurance would pay out almost $500,000 for her death. Samantha is filled with resentment and indignation, listening to her husband tell his mistress about how he pretended that everything was fine with his wife, and her pain did not mean anything, but still persuaded her to take out insurance. He also says that the wait is not long, because the doctors gave no more than 6 months, after which they will receive money and buy themselves whatever they want. Unable to stand it, Samantha enters the room, barely containing her growing anger, which horrifies the couple of lovers. Fear appears on their faces, because they have not only been discovered, but now their plans may not go as originally planned, because Samantha will simply block their access to money. While Brian tries to say the hackneyed phrase that everything is not as she thought, Samantha stops holding back, releasing emotions and tears. Her anger reaches such strength that while she talks about how she won't just die, the heroine begins to smile while her gaze begins to fill with madness from everything that has happened. The girl screams in hatred that, having received monetary compensation for this torment, she will hang a poster on the building so that everyone knows what they are doing in this house while she suffers, that they will be ashamed all their lives. Monica runs up to her, trying to soften her old friend so that she understands everything and does not act like that, including not taking away the insurance. To this she receives a cruel refusal, because now not a trace remains of their friendship. How can a person who waits for the death of a friend for the sake of living with her husband with money for death be called a friend? Monica has no choice but to fall to her knees and beg that Samantha does not tell anyone about what happened, because her reputation will be at zero. Samantha asks how in such a situation she can even care about home and work. As if not realizing what she was about to say, her ex-friend replies that living people must continue to live, and Samantha will die anyway. These words already infuriate our heroine so much that she bites into Monica's hair, wanting to cause as much harm as possible to the homewrecker while she calls Brian for help. He does not find a more suitable solution than to hit his wife, and without any regret he does so. All three freeze after the blow. Samantha's glasses lie broken on the floor, and the girl herself asks Brian how he dared to hit her. Turning to him, she hears him say that since she raised her hand, she should be ready to get hit, and in general, that he is glad that Samantha is dying soon. The arrogant bastard declares that the girl fully deserves everything that happens to her because she doesn't care about other people's normal lives. Samantha, with a crazy expression on her face, says that it seems that he forgot that he spends her money and generally lives at her expense and does not even have the right to shout at her, let alone hit her. Continuing, she says that if she had gone to the clinic at least a little earlier, she could have been saved. But now she will die because of Brian, calling him a bastard and a murderer. Brian cannot stand it and delivers another blow to the girl's face, stronger than the previous one, which knocks Samantha, weakened by illness and grief, off her feet. This blow becomes fatal for our heroine, because when she falls, she hits the corner of a nearby table with her head, covering it with blood. Unable to get up, Samantha begins to bleed, gradually losing consciousness. Brian and Monica look at Samantha's body with horror and disgust, realizing what just happened. Before Samantha's eyes, she finally sees the lovers' conversation about how she would have died anyway, which means now they can get the money earlier, after which darkness falls. A memory appears in her head, the last thing she will see in this life, about how she, while still a girl, goes to school. She is called by a voice so close and dear, one whom she has not heard for more than 10 years ago. This is the voice of her dad, who decided to say goodbye before the girl left for school. He asks her to make him a promise that we know she couldn't keep, as a gift. Her father, already in his last years, asks her to live this life happily, without looking back at anything, as soon as she wakes up. The girl clearly remembers his kind face. In her heart, she is glad that before her death, she was able to see him again. Laughing sweetly at this request, Samantha agrees to this promise. Having received a suitable answer, Samantha's father scatters into thousands of pink petals, the same harbingers of life as those she saw today. Now nothing holds her here. But instead of leaving this world forever, the girl wakes up, as her father asked. She feels a light touch of someone's hand on her shoulder, which is trying to push her to wake up, and a soft voice informing her that lunch is already over. The same female voice carefully reflects that poor Samantha is completely overworked and exhausted. At the same time, Samantha herself is trying to understand where she is and how she got here. The heroine, still coming to her senses, remembers that all this already happened to her 10 years ago, and she had already seen this woman at work before. Approaching the nearest mirror, she grabs her face in bewilderment, because not only did she not die, but she began to look 10 years younger. She is sure that she clearly remembers how Brian dealt her that same unfortunate blow that took her life. A shiver ran down her spine as she realized that she might actually be dead, and this was her personal purgatory. She is brought out of her stupor by the ringing of the phone, the same one that Samantha used just 10 years ago. She sits down at the table, realizing that she has returned exactly 10 years into her past, even before she married Brian. Saying this hated name in her head, she hears the voice of this man and sees him reflected in the flesh, just as rejuvenated. Despite her return to the past, Samantha has not forgotten what her husband did to her. She has not lost a single memory, and now his presence reminds her of this incident. Again, young Brian, in turn, simply came to check on Samantha since she did not show up for her work time after lunch. At the same time, the picture of Brian again appears before the girl, declaring how good it will be when she dies, how she deserved her death. This memory does not allow Samantha to calmly remain next to her future killer. She suddenly gets up and wants to leave. However, Brian prevents her from leaving, managing to grab the girl's hand, which makes her scream in fear. Samantha forcefully escapes from the hands of her not-yet-husband, screaming that he should not touch her. She, without holding back her emotions, tells Brian not only not to talk to her, but not even to look in her direction. At the same time, another face familiar to Samantha, a man who at that time was a close friend of our heroine, approaches them in response to the noise. Monica, also 10 years younger, now stood in front of them and asked if everything was okay because they could be heard even outside. And again, Samantha is covered with the memory of how Monica, on her knees, asks to allow her and Brian to live normally, because Samantha herself will die in any case. These two nearby want to get her even after death, the girl thinks, not holding back a contemptuous grimace. She still thinks that she remains in the next world. She notes that for the first time in her memory, she wants to break this sweet little face of Monica with something heavier, and this is probably just a dying dream. Such emotional torment torments the heroine. She bursts into tears from such injustice because she will have to suffer again like she has all her life. At the sound of this crying, another person comes out, a woman with stylish short hair, the same one who woke up Samantha, asking why she was crying and informing her that the heroine needs to see the manager. Wiping her tears, Samantha remembers this girl, Lisa, whom she knew for a long time, and leaves this place because now the office manager wants to see her. She doesn't remember his name at all, but she remembers that he was the most normal and good-natured in her life, wears the same suit, and doesn't say anything unnecessary. In addition, he always treats his work very responsibly, devoting all his time to it without reserve. His name is Chad. His nickname around the office is nothing less than a businessman. He is tall, brunette, with a steely, stern look, and right now he is asking Samantha to remember to separate work and personal life. Our heroine, a little frozen when examining her manager, apologizes without taking her brown eyes off him. He gives her a report saying that the edit satisfied him, and for today he has no work for the girl, which means that she can be free. The manager gives her a handkerchief on the folder as a gesture of caring, and he tells Samantha to try not to embarrass the other team members with her personal questions. Our heroine apologizes again and leaves Chad's office, thinking that after all, everything that is happening around is really a dream. With her head in the clouds, she brushes against a trash can, trips and falls to the floor, cursing her own clumsiness. Showing an inhuman reaction, Chad extends his arm to prevent his subordinate from falling. With a sharp movement, without a drop of doubt, he picks her up like a feather, preventing Samantha from ending up on the floor, which only confirms for her the idea that this can only happen in a dream. Finally, their eyes met. The concerned manager asks the frozen Samantha if she was hurt, while the girl cannot believe what happened. Realizing that she touched him for the first time, she awkwardly tries to pull away, not wanting to increase this very awkwardness. She says that everything is fine and runs away. Chad, maintaining his usual cold and stony expression, watches Samantha run away. The heroine herself, having finally pulled herself together and realizing that she now needs to live part of her life again, is not going to give up and relive her torment. As she boards the elevator, she tries to decide what her next steps will be and whether she can now change her fate. Without accepting the reality around her, remaining in the dark whether this is a dream or real events, Samantha is at a dead end. Also, this manager, she thinks, touched her for the first time, which had never happened before. Her thoughts about everything that is happening are interrupted by the ringing of the elevator, in which the heroine was going down. Her feelings are now very real, Samantha thinks, which brings her agreement with the idea that this is not a dream. She runs out of the building, tripping once and hitting her knee, but immediately continuing her escape from the building to the outside despite the pain. Running out into the street, Samantha sees that the spring around is the same as on the day of her death. A wave of fatigue rolls over her. All that remains of our heroine's desires now is to get home, fall on a soft pillow, and fall asleep. Already on the bus on the way home, Samantha wonders why she ended up in 2009, and she has the idea that it was in this year that she married Brian. Her thoughts were interrupted by a call, not from Brian, but from Chad's manager, which she didn't quite expect. The manager tells her that there is one more task Samantha needs to complete, and she agrees to do it the next day. However, he informs her that tomorrow is a day off. Samantha hears that she won't be working tomorrow and ends the call with some relief, wondering how to spend the rest of her time. Closing the phone with a deft movement of her hand, she notes to herself that these mobile phones were more convenient than the smartphones that replaced them. There is a suspicious rustling sound in the pocket, and the girl notices this while trying to take the item out of her trouser pocket. She looks in shock at what she managed to get, because for Samantha, it explains a lot of what happened. Namely, the very same bill that she wanted to give to the taxi driver on the day of her death, and the candy with which he returned this bill to her. Tears begin to fall from Samantha's eyes, and she uncontrollably begins to sob in gratitude that her father gave her a second chance. Wiping her tears, she accepts this last gift and repeats to herself that she will not miss the opportunity to keep her promise. This becomes the final proof that she has indeed returned to the past, leaving her dark future behind. At the same time, Brian looks thoughtfully at his phone and doesn't understand why his girlfriend doesn't answer his calls and messages, and in general behaved this way today, shouting at him. This is completely unlike her, he thinks, because she even forgot her bag at work, which had never been observed before. Monica asks him if Samantha answered him, to which Brian replies that there is no answer, but he will go to her house to return the bag. This surprises the girl. She doesn't understand why Brian should go to Samantha's now, because he could just invite her to a restaurant and the three of them sit there, to which Brian agrees. They are interrupted by the manager, who is not happy with the fact that his employees are going somewhere without finishing their work, for which they receive money. His intrusion into the conversation confuses the couple. They apologize, although Brian notes to himself that he did not deserve this. Monica falls into her chair, digesting everything that has happened today. Opening the phone, she sees that Samantha does not answer her messages and calls, completely closing herself off from the conversation. There's an evil twinkle in her eyes, as if her friend has recognized Monica's true motives, and now it's all a game in which only one will get a good and happy life. And Samantha, at the same time, arrives at her old house, the one in which she lived before her wedding with Brian, which is also the same house that she and her father bought in the capital. There is a combination lock on the door, the password for which our heroine remembers well, because it is the birthday of his future husband. But now she will change it to a new one that does not remind him of him. She feels strange entering her childhood home, but overcomes her fear and turns the handle. Outside, the door awaits her home, full of memories that she has long forgotten. Immediately from the entrance, her attention is drawn to a corner with photo frames, on which she saw only despicable faces. A photo with Brian from when they started dating, a photo with Monica from last Halloween, and a gift from Monica, a yellow duck with a heart on its belly. This toy, according to Monica herself, was a sign of her undying long-term friendship with Samantha, because they always had the same tastes for things. Throwing out all the reminders of her former friends, Samantha ironically notes that one of the things her friend had her eye on was her husband. But all this fades into the background because the girl finds a small glossy notebook, which turns out to be her savings book. Reading the information about her money balances, Samantha remembers that she doesn't have much money for this period, and besides, she has a small debt to the bank. Our heroine thinks to herself that it would be nice to remember the number of some lottery ticket, but in her head, she immediately finds a simpler and more elegant solution. Brian, in the present tense, was obsessed with trading the stock market, buying and selling shares of various companies, and at the same time always remained in the black. Finally, in this life, her boyfriend will be of at least some benefit, Samantha continues to think, but for now it's time to think through a plan of action. Her phone buzzes again, and despite knowing it's probably the hated Brian, she decides to look at the message. This is really a message from him, in which he suggests getting together in a cafe and wants to treat Samantha to the chicken there, which she perceives as mockery. Although pondering this proposal, she realizes that this is precisely her first chance to strike at Monica and Brian, and thereby seize the initiative in her life. Brian looks nervous, as if he hadn't counted on Samantha to answer, and wonders what could have changed about her. The manager notices him, who in turn reminds him that work requires him to work and not sit on the phone all day, and he never received a report from Brian. Reading the report the guy brought, Chad coldly notes that the report is unfinished and does not contain a lot of necessary information, which means Brian did not do the job. He, in turn, begins to make excuses, asking for forgiveness for such an oversight, and asks to give him a little more time. Chad tells him not to have his head in the clouds and come down to earth, and most importantly, quickly bring the rest of the report. Returning to his place, Brian is dissatisfied with the fact that even though they are the same age, Chad makes him work so hard, checking each of his work more carefully than the rest. Monica, noticing his mood, playfully places a sticker on Brian's workplace, asking the guy with a sweet look to read her proposal to go get some chicken in a cafe after work. And Brian doesn't mind, and he makes the same gesture towards his girlfriend with hair the color of pink copper. Having received the answer she was counting on, Monica reinforces their intentions with a gesture so as not to provoke the manager into punishment by talking. Returning to work, Brian thinks that it would be nice to clean up his car, because even though Samantha is used to the fact that his place is always dirty, Monica is a completely different girl. And while this couple is sorting out their work matters, Samantha, for the first time in many years, decides to take care of her wardrobe, which has not seen changes for many years. And besides this, the girl thinks, it would be worth remembering how she applied makeup and whether she did it at all, which makes her think of starting with her hair. Even though this should be her and Brian's last meeting, she can't afford to go into it looking like the last redneck. While waiting a few minutes for the curling iron to warm up, the girl receives another message and reaches for the phone. Suddenly, Samantha's mind is filled with the memory of the same day in which nothing foreshadowed trouble, and she was also sitting at this table. Then she, also waiting for the curling iron to warm up, decided to respond to the message and accidentally touched the hot plate, getting burned. This burn was quite painful and lasted for several months, reminding itself with every movement of the hand. But this time, the girl, who received a painful memory from a past life, was ready for such a development of events, and therefore deftly picks up the phone from the floor. In fact, not a single mark was left on her hand. The curling iron was not touched, which means the girl's fate has changed, and nothing will stop her from continuing to change it in her favor. Having received a message from Brian that he is already on his way to her with a gift, Samantha catches herself thinking that this is exactly what happened to her. The surprise at that meeting was Monica, but then our heroine had no idea what this insidious and impudent girl was like. And at that second, Samantha comes up with a delightful plan for revenge, one that she can bring to life and at the same time receive maximum satisfaction. She will not interfere in the relationship between Brian and Monica. Moreover, she will help them in every possible way. Developing this thought in her head and imagining how all this will change her future, Samantha cannot help but look pleased with her face. It is Monica who will take her place in this life and marry Brian, she comes to the conclusion, and she will play a major role in this. Sitting at a cafe table waiting for the future couple, Samantha thoughtfully sips her drink and thinks about what she will do and say today. Brian and Monica did not have to wait long and greeted their friend with joyful faces. The guy tells Samantha that they were very worried about her today, to which the girl does not react at all. But in her heart, she despises that instead of supporting her, these two only came to celebrate. Knowing that Monica will deliberately want to choose the same thing as her, Samantha orders fried chicken feet and grilled fish soup, which Monica just bites on. Our heroine also mentally notes her friend's earrings, because these are the same earrings that you gave her in a past life, although they didn't even suit Samantha. All this time, Monica does not stop talking about how Samantha had no friends except her since childhood, and, in general, Samantha grew up and became prettier, but she has not changed since school. And while Samantha herself is trying to ignore her annoying friend, she begins to involve Brian in her story, asking him to extend his hand. As soon as the guy fulfills her request, Monica puts her palm on his palm, which causes Brian slight embarrassment because all this is happening in front of his girlfriend. She looks emotionlessly at this mediocre flirting on the part of her friend because this just plays into her hands, little by little bringing her plan of revenge closer to completion. Gradually, glass by glass, Monica falls under the influence of alcohol, and earlier than the others, which our heroine remembers for herself. The friend becomes more and more filled with alcohol, beginning to behave more and more unbridled. This cannot but affect the two other participants in their small meeting. While Brian supports Monica in emptying the bottle, Samantha feels disgusted about drinking with these people, but needs to be careful and continue to monitor the situation. As she expected, when she sees chicken feet in real life, Monica becomes uneasy, which Brian also notices, remembering that what Samantha likes, she also likes. As if playing along, our heroine reminds her that the last time they were here, Monica ate 2 whole servings of this wonderful delicacy, which puts the latter in an awkward position. She is saved from inevitable nausea only by the waitress arriving with a new dish, soup with grilled fish. Suddenly, the waitress is hit by a man running nearby out of nowhere, and she loses her balance right above our heroine. She touches Samantha's hand with a hot pot of soup, causing her severe pain which will leave a burn. It slowly appears on her hand as the terrified waitress rushes to the kitchen to get ice and a towel for the girl, asking for forgiveness in between. Monica also wants to try to help Samantha, but she doesn't even imagine that for her, she is the last person from whom she would like to receive this very help. With her remaining hand, Samantha fights off Monica's helping hand, trying to throw the latter away from her. Realizing that she overdid it, our heroine goes to the toilet to be alone and think about what happened. Holding the burn under a stream of cold water, Samantha reflects on the fact that that day, despite successfully solving the problem with the curling iron, she still got burned. Will the past really haunt her, and where she tries to hide from its traumas, it will overtake her in other places, she thinks. Suddenly, she is really destined to marry this heartless and deceitful man. Samantha's alarming thought slips through, and she has no opportunity to change her fate. And yet she gathers her will into a fist, and with a menacing fighting look, tells her reflection, and in a sense her fate, that she will not accept this. Returning to the table, Samantha notices that Monica is already at the limit of her drinking capacity and should probably go home already. Although she still has some passion, she will soon turn into a lifeless, drunken body that will become a burden to everyone, which means it's time to get rid of her today, because there is unfinished business with Brian. Despite all this, Monica, without embarrassment, asks what Brian really likes about Samantha, which causes a wave of indignation inside the latter. The guy, a little embarrassed, replies that Samantha is very kind and hardworking, and he has never met anyone even a little like her. Drunk Monica, of course, by this moment forgets about her question and asks Samantha to feed her that very fish from the grill, defiantly opening her mouth and pointing her finger at it. Our heroine fulfills the request of her sworn friend, but without missing the opportunity to annoy her, stuffing a piece of fish right into Monica, saying that the drunk girl should go home already. And before she realized what was happening, Samantha grabs her hand, saying that the taxi has already arrived to take the tired and drunk Monica to rest. Monica can't say a word as her friend pushes her into a taxi and tells the driver the address of her house. Samantha looks at the car leaving and feels the coming silence and calm, because Monica, who brings an element of chaos, is now no longer around. Pleased with this small victory, our heroine does not hold back and with an ironic smile wishes her sworn friend a happy journey. Now only Brian remains, and Samantha now has her own plan for him, which means she needs to go back to the cafe where he was left alone. Together, they talk a little about Monica, who has left them for today, especially about the fact that she is greatly affected by alcohol, partly because of her thinness, and decide to drink a little more, because tomorrow is a day off. Samantha plays it safe, adding more and more alcohol to both herself and Brian. And this does not go unnoticed by the guy, to which the girl says that they did not come here to eat, but to get drunk. Fueled by alcohol, Brian asks Samantha to take off her glasses, and after she does this, He says that without them, she is a completely different person and she should get laser correction. Smiling feigningly, Samantha replies that she will do so on her next vacation, by which time her salary may increase, although she would like to try to make money on stocks. While Brian, who has heard about his passion, tells the heroine everything she needs to know about the current situation on the stock market, the girl just smiles sweetly and delves into his words, asking him to continue. Finally, the time comes to an end. They leave, and Brian accompanies Samantha to her house, for which she thanks him. Unexpectedly for her, the guy pulls the girl towards him and whispers goodnight and sweet dreams to her before kissing her on the forehead, making the girl feel disgusted. After this, she sharply retreats and goes home, wanting to leave the person she hates as quickly as possible. And now Samantha is already at home, left alone with her thoughts and wanting to lie down and relax as quickly as possible after a busy day. Falling onto the bed, she notes with pride that she completed all the tasks she set for herself with a bang, and now everything will go the way she wants. All that remains is to listen to the recording that she made while drunk Brian was talking about the most popular and profitable promotions at the moment. The very next day, Samantha comes to the library, relying on the information received from her failed husband in order to find suitable books on business. She will have to search among many hundreds of different books of varying usefulness in order to find the copy that Brian praised so much. Looking through the next book, our heroine, a little taken aback by various financial terms, wonders how she can learn this if she doesn't even understand what it's about. Samantha reaches out with all her might to the next book standing on the top shelf, which is exactly what she needs, because it talks about the basics of trading, but the book is too high. While she is trying to reach, a strong male hand, appearing almost out of nowhere, easily takes out the copy Samantha needs. Delighted by the sudden help, the girl turns around to thank her savior, because she was worried that she would not be able to get the book. This very savior turns out to be none other than Chad, who asks Samantha, who was surprised by such a surprise, if she was planning to leave her job and go into business. To such a question, the girl cannot find a better answer than to say that Brian became interested in the shares, and she, so to speak, began to be interested in them too. Chad senses that Samantha is trying to run away and directly asks her if she is going to leave to meet with Brian, to which he receives a negative answer. The heroine admits to him that, on the contrary, she told Brian that she was sick so as not to go to a meeting with him, and asks the manager not to tell anyone about their meeting. Hearing this, Chad wants to ask her if she is free tomorrow, but turns away mid-sentence when he hears that Samantha wants to be alone this weekend. Finally, he says that the earrings she put on suit her very well, but the previous ones didn't suit her face at all, which confuses Samantha a little. She cordially but formally thanks him for his kind words, takes his leave and says goodbye, to which Chad also says goodbye and asks not to be late for work after the weekend. This meeting caused mixed emotions in our heroine, because on the one hand, she was glad to see the manager in an informal setting, and on the other hand, she cannot forgive herself for not letting him finish. On Monday, Samantha returns back to work, rested and energized, already in better condition than on the day she returned to the past. As she approaches her workstation, she turns around and is a little startled when she sees Chad sitting motionless in his chair, unconscious. However, fear gives way to surprise, because manager Chad is simply fast asleep, as if he had not left his workplace all weekend, even at night. Samantha comes as close to him as possible, trying to discern the features of his young, but even in sleep serious face, noting that without glasses he is especially handsome. While she is admiring her manager, the staring girl loses sight of the fact that he has woken up, and in turn examines her face. The awkward moment is interrupted as suddenly as it came. She both jump up slightly and begin their day to day, remembering this little incident in their heads. While there is a free minute, Samantha sits down at her computer and starts making money, because over the weekend she became a little more adept at playing the stock market with the help of books and Brian's involuntary tips. First of all, she wants to invest in a pharmaceutical company that will soon greatly expand abroad, which means the shares will grow exponentially, an ideal opportunity. While she is engrossed in the stock market, the same man's hand falls next to her as in the library, but not with a book, but with a glass of aromatic coffee. This is the same Chad who brought a sandwich and an Americano with ice for his hardworking subordinate, which she wants to refuse, just like she did before. But she overcomes herself, breaking into a big smile like a happy child. Samantha, with all her natural sweetness, thanks the caring manager, thus finally allowing others to help her. Chad did not expect such a ray of tenderness in his direction, and not knowing any other option, he simply abruptly leaves, inviting the girl to continue her work. Such a drastic change in Chad's behavior worries our heroine. She is worried that the manager will change his opinion about her, but on the other hand, there is no time for that now, because she must continue trading on the stock exchange. After having a snack and starting her new hobby, the girl begins buying shares. Half an hour later, Samantha buys back more than 2,000 shares of the same pharmaceutical company in which Brian also invests, for which she spends almost $20,000 from her savings. A few minutes later, Lisa, who holds the post of assistant manager, comes into the office and is, as always, in a great mood. And after another half hour, Monica and Brian enter the office together, simultaneously telling everyone how they accidentally met at the entrance to the building. Monica tries to talk to Samantha about her well-being, but she abruptly cuts her off, asking her to be more formal because he is at work. Brian also starts a conversation, starting with the fact that Samantha is drinking an Americano this time instead of taking her favorite cappuccino, and guesses that manager Chad could be involved in this. Deciding to rest, Samantha gets up and is about to go get a new mug of coffee, when suddenly she decides to spy on what Brian is doing with his shares now. Out of the corner of her eye, she sees that he is working with the shares of this company, and the strangest thing is that he seems to be going to sell them completely. Shocked that he sold everything while she was buying, Samantha remains seated as a pleased Brian counts his profits. Remembering that by investing in this company 10 years before her death, he increased his capital, Samantha is perplexed why this time the guy sold everything without waiting for the shares to start generating income. At this time, Brian himself seemed to notice the heroine's interest and asked her why she was so serious, bringing her out of her stupor with his question. Answering her question about why he sold the shares, Brian replies that he already received his profit, and now he is interested in a new company, for which he has high hopes. He secretly tells Samantha about this company, the future new technology giant, whose shares have skyrocketed, and what's most interesting is that the girl herself remembered it. Now the girl understood what caused such a change in Brian's trade, but now she would need to find out from him about buying new ones, which means she needed to get close to him again. It will be lunch soon, she thinks, which means she can invite him to have a snack with her and find out everything at the same time. A minute before the break, she approaches him and offers to share lunch with her. This time, Samantha specifically reveals her natural sweetness, because the issue of shares is most important to her now, which means the meeting is needed as early as possible. While Samantha and Brian are standing at the elevator, Monica runs up and remembers that her friend had never gone to the cafeteria to have lunch with them before. Looking at her friend with an intrigued look, she turns the conversation to the girl's new blouse, which looks great on her. This phrase seems to unlock a new memory for Samantha from a past life, revealing Monica's motives this time. A couple of minutes later, Monica will deliberately spill soup on this blouse, after which our heroine will never be able to wear it again because of the stain. But this time, that will not happen. The cafeteria, although not of much interest to most of the workers, gradually filled with new people who wanted to eat for a small fee. Monica and Samantha are standing near the distribution, and while Samantha is picking up something tastier for herself, Monica begins to praise the local soup, asking for a double portion. Moving away from the counter, Samantha realizes that there is little time left before the so-called girlfriend commits sabotage. She's already starting to spin around, looking for the best angle, she muses, anticipating what the best answer would be. Monica, in turn, has already taken aim, and now there are a couple of seconds left before the so-called accident. And so, asking Samantha where it would be better for them to sit, she turns around with all her might, and the contents of the tray cannot withstand the forces of physics scattering everywhere. And the soup, as Samantha predicted, flies directly towards her snow-white blouse. But this time she is ready, and with a sharp movement, our heroine moves away from this blow, and someone else will be its victim. Brian definitely didn't expect this at lunch, and now the rest of Monica's soup is spilling on his new jacket, dooming this very jacket to be thrown away. Neither Monica nor Brian, unlike Samantha, expected this, and the first began to apologize immensely, realizing what she had done. She asks the guy if he is okay, to which he has to calm the beauty down, saying that the soup was not hot and he didn't get burned. But in his heart, he was furious because his shirt cost a lot of money, and now it was destroyed forever. But Brian restrains himself because he does not want to upset Monica. But Samantha is not holding back, and in an authoritative voice, she orders her not to stand still doing nothing, but to carry napkins. While the girl leaves, our heroine and Brian discuss what happened, and Brian worries that this shirt was a gift from Samantha for their first anniversary, and he doesn't want to lose it. This defeat infuriates Monica, and she quickens her pace in order to hide from prying eyes as quickly as possible. Returning, she finds only Samantha, who was also getting ready to go to the restroom, and asks her where Brian went, to which she receives the answer that he went to wash himself. Having retired, our heroine mentally savors her victory because her path of revenge has only just begun and is already going on as spectacularly as she could not even imagine. Then, in the booth behind her, a woman's voice is heard asking the girl for urgent help. Samantha, who has a good heart and a desire to help those in need, immediately responds, asking what she can do. The voice from the booth hesitates a little before making its request, but the sensitive Samantha guesses that she is asking the girl to bring pads and happily goes to help. Having brought everything she needs, she also gives her jacket so that the girl from the booth can cover herself if necessary. The stranger thanks her savior, saying that she could have been stuck here until the office closed if Samantha had not come to help. Having waited for the unfamiliar girl to leave the toilet, Samantha sees in front of her an elegant brunette with large gold earrings and an extremely grateful look. This lady's name is Anna, and she got this job only a month ago, at the same time as Monica. She upsetly tells Samantha that another girl came into the toilet before her, but she did not help Anna in any way and silently left, leaving her alone. To cheer up her new friend a little, Samantha offers to go with her for a snack right now, while it's still lunchtime, to which hungry Anna happily agrees. At this time, Monica had already managed to turn the conversation with the arriving Brian about how she cares about everyone around her, and this is her most important trait. She tells how she took care of Samantha because no one liked her at school, and only Monica was able to save her from complete loneliness, and now she wants to tell how she just helped a girl in the toilet. Although, in truth, what she did there goes against what normal people understand by salvation, or even simple help. In vain anger, she tried to tear up some napkins to wipe up the spilled soup, but then Anna called out to her, politely asking for pads. Making a dissatisfied face, Monica decides to dump this loser here because Monica's problems are much more important than some pads. She turns to the door, hearing the voice behind her turn into pleas as she has been the only person here in a long time. An appeal to conscience leads to nothing but a slamming door to the toilet. But now, at the end of the story about the savior Monica, Samantha comes and asks for forgiveness for the delay, since she had to help the girl in the toilet. And she comes not alone, but with living proof of her words, Anna, who is also eager to join dinner. The girls sit down at the table, and in the meantime, a new stage of the confrontation between Samantha and Monica begins. The latter is not very happy with the development of events, but she hopes that no one will suspect her of lying, and even dare to compare her with Samantha. Brian and Anna started talking about how Samantha and Anna met, but the girl easily turns the topic to the red stain on the guy's shirt, to which he replies that it's all nothing. This answer causes an ambiguous reaction from Monica and Samantha. The first even choked on her food from surprise, and the second did not understand why this idiot responded so much about her gift. It's Monica's turn to talk to her new interlocutor, and the conversation turns to Anna's grandfather, who said that everyone needs to eat well, to which Monica bursts out laughing. She brazenly asks if he has achieved anything in his life, but Anna does not seem to notice this question being posed and just as cheerfully talks about her family, as if there are no closed questions for her. After lunch, the group stops at the elevator, where Brian states that he has important business to attend to and needs to leave while the girls go back to the office to continue working. Samantha decides that it would be a good idea to grab a coffee before continuing her workday, while receiving encouragement from Anna and requests from both girls to grab drinks for them too, Monica a cappuccino and Anna an Americano. Samantha leaves, and Monica and Anna are left alone, after which the first becomes interested in why Anna is wearing our heroine's sweater and how they managed to become friends. Anna tells how she forgot to take sanitary napkins, and while she was desperate, Samantha showed up and helped her out. Monica quickly realizes that the person asking for help from the toilet, whom she refused, was Anna, and hopes that she does not recognize her voice, otherwise rumors will spread about her about how heartless she is. Trying to play it off as a joke, Monica says that Samantha has always been so annoying and always tried to stick her nose into other people's affairs, so in her opinion, she should not be considered a savior, to which she already receives a sharp answer, like a boxer's blow, that prying into someone else's personal life and asking about relatives, even with a new person, is also intrusive. And besides, if Monica didn't have pads with her, she could have just said so, instead of just silently slamming the door. She finishes before the elevator takes her to her office. Monica sees Anna off with a shocked look, because she did not expect such an attack from her, and now her reputation is under threat. This is the end, she thinks, because Anna will easily tell the whole office that the heartless and arrogant Monica refused to help, and the almost saintly Samantha, without thinking twice, saved the girl. Her anxious thoughts are interrupted by the passing head of the department, George, who is not averse to talking with such a beauty as Monica. He himself is already quite old and ugly. His unkempt appearance and crooked teeth do not give him extra points, but now with the appearance of this stupid man, a new plan is brewing in Monica's head. Approaching him, she gently whispers in his ear how glad she would be to have dinner or even a drink with him in some cozy cafe tonight. At the same time, Samantha comes to the cafe next to the office to pick up the girl's order. The thought of manager Chad comes into her head, whom she has never seen at lunch or at meals in general. But besides him, she again notices that fate was able to change for the better, which means she can become happy and rich. Returning to the office, Samantha finds no one at their desks. Everyone seems to have disappeared, except for one person. Chad was still in his big manager's chair, and right now, like this morning, he was fast asleep instead of eating lunch. Our heroine would like to approach him again. However, as soon as she began to walk towards him, she was forcefully grabbed by the hand. This is Brian, and right now he is standing next to her with a menacing look, without letting go of his hand, and does not even offer, but orders her to follow him. In his eyes, there is an anger incomprehensible to Samantha. She has not felt such since the days of her past life, when he sometimes beat her when he came home from work. Feeling this in him, the girl tries to break free, but Brian is stronger than her, and only squeezes his hand harder, and it seems that Samantha has no choice but to obey. Suddenly, Chad intervenes in front of the young people, demanding that Brian immediately release the girl and explain what is happening here. His presence seems to break the guy's will. He abruptly lets Samantha go, realizing that he cannot win in a conflict with the manager, and it will end with a quick dismissal. But Chad, piercing his subordinate with a steely gaze, in turn does not let him go, and demands from Brian an answer to the question posed, to which he simply breaks free and silently moves away from the girl. Samantha looks at all this and does not understand what is happening now, why Brian behaved this way, and why manager Chad stood up for her. At this time, Chad turns his attention to her and thanks her for the coffee, which Samantha prudently bought for him, knowing that an extra charge of vivacity would not hurt him. Brian, at the same time, is incredibly angry that the manager interfered with his conversation with Samantha and tells the girl that he intends to talk to her after work and only in private. He behaved the same way after marriage, throwing his fists at Samantha and shouting that she ruined his whole life as soon as they became engaged. All Samantha could do was to obediently accept the beatings and endure the bullying of her evil husband, listening to how he didn't even want to think about divorce. Memories from the future, which has not yet happened, undermine the emotional state of our heroine. She wants to run away somewhere and cry, but so that no one will find her. But Lisa came to her aid, coming up to support her and give her the opportunity to rest from what had happened. She invites her to drink mint tea because it is delicious, soothing, and in many ways more effective than coffee. Lisa starts the conversation by asking Samantha what happened to her, to which she receives the answer that recycling is to blame. Anna joins their conversation, wanting to also support her friend, and thus they get a small women's club, as our heroine describes it. They discuss a lot of news and new fashionable things, and the most important news is a photo of Lisa's baby, which makes the girls' hearts overflow with cuteness. Lisa says that she misses her child very much while she is at work, but nevertheless, it is necessary to work so that her daughter does not need anything and grows up happy. Also returning from lunch with the old manager, George, Monica notices this small meeting, causing bad thoughts to appear in her head. The friends, who also noticed people staring at them, quickly run away, this time for work. Monica wonders if it was gossip about her and George, or if Anna told everyone about the incident in the toilet. But whatever it was, she now has a new plan. At the end of the working day, Samantha, along with other employees, began to get ready to go home. But in her heart, she understood that Brian would not let her do this just like that. She had to go to the bathroom to sit there until he calmed down and went home, but he still continued to text her while waiting for her in the parking lot. Finally, having gathered her will into a fist, Samantha goes to meet her fate. Because she should stop being afraid of Brian, he is not her husband and will not become one, which means she needs to change and not make past mistakes. As she walks down the hallway, she sees manager Chad again, waiting for the elevator to take her down. There is a slight awkwardness between them, which does not get any easier when Chad tries to explain his presence by saying that he was detained at work. As they head down, Chad doesn't beat around the bush and offers Samantha a ride home if she wants. She, also, without thinking twice, agrees and tells the manager her address, knowing that he will be able to protect her from the annoying Brian. Leaving the parking lot, our heroine nevertheless looks around, looking for his face among the cars. Her hand involuntarily gropes for something square, which any girl can easily recognize as lipstick, which leads Samantha to believe that Chad has a girlfriend. This thought, however, disappears as soon as the girl's eyes find something that is really worth fearing. Brian not only never left, but, on the contrary, continued to wait for Samantha at the entrance, sending more and more messages to her phone. Chad in front of him picks up such speed that he doesn't see if there is anyone else in the car, which, fortunately for our heroine, works successfully. In addition, the windows are tinted, the manager says, and he couldn't help but notice that the girl unconsciously covered her face with her hand. Finally, they part at the entrance to Samantha's apartment. She thanks her boss from the bottom of her heart for driving her straight to the house and says goodbye to him until tomorrow's workday. In turn, Chad follows the girl with his eyes to the entrance. In his eyes, one can read not only heaviness, but also, in a way, concern for Samantha. Getting into the car, he receives a call from an unknown person who addresses him as a brother, offering to go have fun. But the answer comes only with a refusal. The voice in response says that Chad's tone of voice is somehow strange, and in general, Chad himself seemed to have been replaced, but he still stands his ground and ends the conversation. And so this day ended for almost everyone, but there was still Monica, who this evening would have to communicate with George, who was interested in her. He, being fairly drunk just now with a glass in his hand, praises her beauty and invites her to go to the cafe more often together. But he is not yet drunk enough for her plan, and in order to fix this, she invites him to drink a couple more bottles as a bet. When George reaches a suitable condition, she begins to complain to him about Lisa and Anna because, in her opinion, they constantly force her to do a lot of work while insulting her. A fairly drunk George asks Monica not to leave, promising to deal with these hooligans seriously because everyone respects him and Chad. Trying to sound as nice as possible, Monica feigns pity that Samantha has already become friends with everyone in the office, but they continue to hate her. Having received assurances from George that he will protect her, the girl begins to be proud of herself for being able to wrap him around her finger, which means she can only sit on the sidelines and watch the consequences. Samantha, sitting at home in the evening and reading messages from her, also thinks that it's cool to read messages and know in advance that everything written is an empty lie. But in general, it's worth changing the number. Brian calls and Samantha, already feeling safe, picks up the phone. He wants to come to her house, but she sharply replies that she wants to be home alone, and he can tell everything over the phone. Then he gets straight to the point and asks her to explain why she bought manager Chad coffee, to which she finds an answer and wishes him good night, and he responds by saying that he loves her. Samantha turns off the phone and leans back in her chair, wondering if she will ever be told the truth to her face. For a moment, a new memory slips into her head, but this time it concerns not her but Lisa, or rather, how the girl is insulted and documents are thrown at her. And these vile things are done by none other than the head of the department, George. An arrogant and unpleasant man. And the worst thing, Samantha understands, is that this will be the reason for Lisa's dismissal from the company if our heroine does nothing about it. Lisa herself has just returned to her home, anticipating a long-awaited meeting with her beloved daughter. And here she is, already able to walk a little, reaching out to her mother whom she hasn't seen all day. She is approached by her boyfriend, who indifferently states that he is hungry, and Lisa, who has just returned from work, must cook dinner for him. They quarrel, including because the guy didn't even change the child's diapers the whole day. And in general, he doesn't care about the child. But when he leaves, he tells Lisa that it's all her fault. These accusations deeply cut the girl to the heart because she works as hard as she can, not only taking care of her health at work, but also working around the house. Having gathered the last of her strength, Lisa sits down at the computer, offended by her boyfriend, because he has no idea what it's like for her when George constantly hurts her and forces her to redo her normal work. Her little daughter begins to cry because her mother is busy with work again instead of spending time with her. Lisa, realizing that she needs to change her priorities today, goes to bed with her daughter and decides to calm her down with a fairy tale about an enchanted princess who became a witch and the prince who saved her. But fatigue takes its toll, and the young mother, starting to yawn, decides that it's time to go to bed, and her daughter has already fallen asleep. She gradually goes to bed, allowing herself a short rest, because in a few hours, she will need to wake up and get ready for work. Hard work is taking its toll on her more and more, and now it is going beyond all acceptable limits, and Lisa's own life is already under threat. Samantha's memories come to life the next morning, when sheets of the plan she has been preparing for almost a week begin to fly towards Lisa. George outdid himself this time, viciously attacking Lisa for the fact that she devotes less time to work because of the child, which means she should not remain in her position at all. These screams are seen by the entire office, including our main character, who was ready for such a development of events, but it is too early to act. However, she is surprised by the reaction of Monica, who, like everyone else listening to George's bullying, instead of sympathizing with Lisa, smiles as if she is enjoying what is happening. Monica, using her skills and cunning, easily incited George to hate Lisa, who already disgusted him. Having mocked him enough, the old fool lets Lisa go to redo the plan, but our heroine is about to take the initiative. Following her friend into the restroom, she finds her bending next to the first aid kit. Lisa's nose is bleeding, Samantha notes. It's not normal not to waste your health in such a terrible way. She offers to take care of the girl, and first of all makes tea so that they can talk over a mug of this soothing drink. While Lisa is drinking tea, Samantha suggests that she go against the enraged boss and not redo the plan, since there is a better solution. Surprised, Lisa stares at Samantha as if she had proposed marriage to her, and not a cunning way to upset the presumptuous old man. The task, as our heroine explains, is quite simple. You just need to change the cover of the plan and the font in the title, because it was clear that George did not even read Lisa's work. Lisa herself is not entirely sure that this will work, but Samantha charges her with determination and, on top of everything, gives her friend a miniature voice recorder so that she can record all the boss's insults. Although George is a bad person, he's still a little sorry, says Lisa, because while she's away, he's working overtime, but Samantha says the opposite. Sighing, she tells how he dumped all the work on the remaining employees, and even on employees of other departments, while he himself does nothing at all the time. But there is something that he would do with great pleasure and for free, and in which he is the first. This is the humiliation of employees. After this conversation, the friends see the same scene with bullying, but in the direction of Anna, who is attacked by George. Without Samantha's intervention, in her past life, Anna will leave for another department, out of hatred for her boss, who in the presence of Chad behaves like an innocent lamb, and without him, turns into a tyrant. For the rest of the week, he will refuse Lisa's approval of her plan without even touching it. Time after time, he rejected it, shouting at the whole office that this wouldn't work and that she was a mediocre employee, but every time Lisa regularly brought him plans. Finally, on the last day for acceptance, he approves the plan, ordering the original to be given to him and copies to be handed over to the conference room for the approval meeting. So Lisa finally realized that Samantha was right in everything, which means she can continue to be trusted, and now the next step should be taken. And the next step will be to replace the copy and the original, which Samantha carefully explains to Lisa via email. She decides to personally deliver the document to manager Chad, who instructs the girl before the conference, and at the same time reports that Anna has already gone to get coffee for this meeting, which in turn was liked by the whole team, including Brian, who loved the sweeter versions of this drink. But there was one person who could not find at least something good in this, and naturally this is George, unhappy with the purchase of expensive coffee. These screams are interrupted by Chad, who calmly tells George to calm down, since Chad himself approved the purchase of coffee. This is enough for George to start licking his boss's shoes, offering to buy cheap instant coffee, to which Chad replies that George himself can buy such coffee for himself if he likes it. Monica, present at that moment at the conference, notices to herself that this was Chad's personal card, and he entrusted it to Anna. So, the conference has begun, and as a senior manager, Chad proposes to get down to business and begin discussing Lisa's plan. The girl talks about her plan for marketing operations and ideas for distributing goods, carefully and without unnecessary information. But the manager sees discrepancies, namely mixed up pages that are mixed together. George takes the opportunity to attack Lisa again, shouting to the entire office that she should have given the original to the boss. Wanting to suck up to the manager, he hands over his copy, assuring that this is the original that he had from the very beginning. But it turns out that this copy was rejected by George a few days ago, although the other copies are no different from this one, which Chad and Lisa immediately notice. The manager immediately asks why this happened, to which the graying head of the department replies that everything was wrong. That's why he rejected it, but it's clear from him that this is just a lie. Already with slight contempt, Chad replies that both plans have identical content, and the only difference is the cover. And now frightened George will need to look for a good reason to explain his actions, which will be extremely difficult with his intelligence. And instead of a clear explanation, he decides to blame Lisa for all the confusion. But then Samantha intervenes in the conversation, admitting that Lisa wrote the plan and she redid it, because it seemed to her that Lisa was unwell, after which she apologizes. Chad accepts the apology and asks George if he read the plan himself. He realizes that he has fallen into a deadly trap, from which there is no way to get out without losses, and begins to endlessly apologize, promising that this will not happen again. But all he gets from Chad is just an icy look and an order to immediately prepare everything for tomorrow. This ends George's power over the department, and in the future, he will no longer be able to deceive the boss in this way, transferring work to others.